Episode 3. The Bloom That Watches the Garden had no business being alive. It spread across the frozen plain like spilled paint violet, phosphorescent, pulsing with a rhythm too slow for any heartbeat. The flowers bloomed in silence, stalks trembling, without wind, as if they shivered beneath the weight of being seen. Mercurius stepped lightly between them, his boots crunching frost and cracked bone underfoot. The petals recoiled at his presence, but not in fear. Reverence, maybe. Recognition. The garden was not natural. Nothing on Pluto was. But this was something else. He had seen war zones in vacuum. He had walked the fault lines of crater cities and watched towers collapse in the silence between pulses. But this was worse. This was beautiful. And beauty, here, was always a lie. At the heart of the bloom stood 2 towered-wind spires, identical once. Now, one leaned against its sibling like a drunk brother, all shattered glass and ruptured steel. The other stood straight, proud. Wrong dot, their windows blinked, or maybe he imagined that he adjusted the weight of the long silence slung across his back, brushed frost from his shoulder, and stepped toward the intact tower. The entrance was half swallowed by overgrowth vines like glass wire. Flowers clustered in the shape of human faces. As he passed beneath the archway, one of them whispered, not a sound, a sensation, like fingers brushing memory. He ignored it. Inside, the air was thin and mineral. Every breath clawed his lungs. The stairs curled upward, spines of iron twisted by time. They creaked like old voices, not as he climbed. He began to remember things he hadn't lived. A corridor of flickering lights, domain carved into the wall in his handwriting. The smell of his mother's hair, though he never knew her. That was the pulse, playing tricks again. But it didn't matter. He kept climbing at the 33rd floor. The tower opened into a wide chamber wall. Once might have been an observatory or data hall. The windows looked out over the glowing garden floor, and in the middle of the floor, clustered near a shattered beam. They waited. 10 of them. What the pulse did to people was different every time. These were hollowed out. Some still wore tatters of uniforms. One had a mouth where its stomach should be, chanting in reverse. Another dragged its own spine like a leash. Their eyes were gone, replaced by cracks that bled violet mist. Mercurius's hand dropped to the Colt 1860. Army he moved first. BLAM. First shot caught the nearest in the chest. It spun and collapsed in a burst of light and liquid. BLAM. Second shot. Skull split open. He raised the revolver for the 3rd shot. Click. He frowned. Click. Jam, of course. He holstered it mid-stride, smooth as breath, and pulled the Colt 1851, navy elegant and sleek, silver glinting in the violet dark. Crack, 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 crack. Each shot found a mark. One down mid-leap, another split at the throat, a third dodged caught in the skull on the 2nd try. Violet mist boiled away in curls of silence. That was 9 down. Only one remained, twitching, melting, growing. The last infected was no longer moving like the others. It had stopped, straightened, then began to twist from the inside out. The skin cracked and pulled like clay under fire. Its chest split open, not in gore but in bloom, revealing a yawning blackness. An eye within the wound, unblinking, hungry, Mercurius, praised the rifle. The long silence. Click, empty. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. The creature screamed with no sound, and the world shivered. He reached for something, anything, and then they arrived. 3 figures, cloaked and masked, stepped from the edges of shadow like they had always been there. No fanfare, no flash dot, just presence. One slashed with a dagger curved like memory. Another fired a weapon humming with wrong frequencies. The last simply raised a hand. The pulse creature folded into nothing, as if it had only ever been an idea. Smoke drifted, browned Mercurius's boots. He didn't move at first, just stared at the scorch marks, the corpses, his own hands. The new weapon at his hip, the Glock 22 Gen 5, gifted without words from the figure who had fought empty-handed. His breath came shallow. What the hell was this world now? The 3 masked figures turned and began to ascend. Mercurius followed. They passed rooms overgrown with glass vines and frost-eaten furniture. The building felt more like a mausoleum now, one that hadn't finished burying its dead on the 41st floor. They stopped at a sealed door. One masked figure approached the terminal. It hissed open, revealing an administrative room preserved by luck or neglect. 2 logs glowed on a working console. Security log, incident reports, PST, IMIA-0613, recovered scientific log, fragment 027. Mercurius uploaded both to his datapad. He didn't read them, not yet, later, when he was safe. If that word still meant anything. They climbed higher. The summit groaned around them, the air thinner, colder, vibrating with light. The top floor was a shattered observatory. The sky above, cross, was the ceiling of the crust, cracked and glowing like bone lit from within. A fractured orrery lay in ruins. Old instruments blinked. Nonsense. One masked figure stood near the glass dome, watching. Another traced the spiral symbols carved into steel. The third stood by Mercurius, close, but not too close. Mercurius stared out at the fractured sky. He saw a violet petal drifting upward through broken air, suspended, weightless, as if time had let go. He wanted to ask questions, so many. Instead, he stood there, breathing, bleeding, his soul heavy and quiet. He didn't thank them. They didn't ask. The masked figure gestured. Time to go. He followed, and the tower watched them leave.